may have heard the story before about the man that's on the seashore and he's throwing sea stars. That's what they're called now. I know you know them as starfish, but they're sea stars. And anyway, he's throwing them one at a time. There's all these sea stars on the beach. And a bystander says, "What are you doing, man? That's not going to make any difference. There's so many of them. You're wasting your time." And the man just very thoughtfully picks up another one and he puts it into the sea. And he turns to the bystander and he says, "It's going to make a difference to that one." You know, and sometimes I think we do get caught up in this idea that our actions may not change everything. They may not affect everything, but there is certainly a transformation that can happen in that one action. And it can matter, that one action can matter really greatly. So there's a ripple effect. Thank you very much, Carrie. There's a ripple effect, isn't there? Because I wonder, you wonder when you hear these stories or even in our own experiences when we have an interaction, what happens afterwards? What happened for the bystander? Were they inspired to take some kind of action after having that exchange, after witnessing and observing this man's commitment to every individual sea star that he put in the ocean? And for you to consider I just want to kind of put this forward at the beginning of the talk so you can maybe at times throughout the talk it'll come for you, is what's the action that you're really being nudged to take? What is Spirit telling you these days that, hey, it's time for you to take some action in this particular area or around this particular issue or in your life or for yourself or for the world, whatever it may be. So there might be something that's been stirring for you or that you've been holding for a while. Just be aware of that. Maybe, and you can, of course, spend more time after this with that, journaling, meditating, holding that space for it as well. So as I mentioned, today we're talking about principle number 5, and it really is the encapsulation of all of them, the enactment of all the other principles. It's the embodiment of the first 4 principles. And so to think of it as, when we get to the 5th, it all comes alive, right? And just a little reminder for you, a little short actionable form of the 5 principles, maybe a little bit easier to remember them this way. The first one is God is. And one of the ways we say God is everywhere present. And the second is I am divine, our very essence, right? The third is to think it and feel it, those first 2 principles. The fourth is to pray and meditate it, or as we talked about last week, release and affirm it. But know that these 2 things are true for us. And then finally, number 5 is to live it, to put them all together and to live it, to embody it, to enact it, to become it. And we can do that in so many different ways, can't we? I mean, simple ways too. We can practice everywhere we go. You can practice living the truth that you know from the other principles, the spiritual principle that you know, that you've learned thus far on your journey. You can live it when you're on the line waiting for customer service. You can. You too can do this. You can live it when you're cut off in traffic. You can live it at the family dinner table, which may or may not be a warm and friendly experience for you all the time. So I hope it is. I trust it is. I affirm it is. So let's not just take action, though, when we talk about principle number 5, living the principles. Let's not only just take any old action. Let's take right action. And by right action, I don't mean like some moral right action. I don't mean based on the human-made rules of society or even, your idea of, I know the right way to do this. You ever thought about that, And it shall be done my way, right? We're not really talking about that perspective either. We have all been on both sides of that perspective, I'm sure. But what we're talking about when I say right action is divinely aligned action. It's action that feels in alignment with what Spirit would have us do, what the very depth of our heart would have us do. Our very deepest heart desires are the will of the divine. And so it's that connection that we make with that and the actions that we take that follow up with that bring forth the highest good. So we know the mighty power of principle number 4, right? Prayer and meditation. We've lived that in our lives. We know how that can help us, what's available to us. And sometimes it really isn't enough. To co-create what it is that we want to co-create, thoughts and feelings are super powerful, and prayer and meditation is a wonderful tool, and you gotta move your feet, right? You gotta take action. You are the hands and feet of the divine in the world. So you have the gift of the physical in order to take the actions that we need to take in order to make the dreams we hold come true. So Senator Chris Murphy in 2015 said this about the thoughts and prayers. He was getting tired about hearing just thoughts and prayers after all these mass shootings. And so he tweeted out to his colleagues, your thoughts should be about the next steps to take to stop the carnage. Your prayers should be about forgiveness if you do nothing again. And so sometimes we get into that kind of righteous space, right? But it's like that righteous anger space that says, we gotta take action. We gotta make movement here, or nothing's gonna happen. And thoughts and prayers then just become platitudes. They become like empty statements. So, thought and prayer with heart, thought and prayer with energy, with a sense of peace and harmony will naturally lead us to action. Because Spirit won't let us just sit around on our laurels when we care deeply about something. And so it is that movement that helps us. It's like you could think of it as a garden. Truth is the seed, and prayer and meditation prepare the soil. Faith waters the seed. But nothing's going to happen unless you plant it, right? Unless you get your hands in the dirt and plant it, unless you dig the hole and put the seed in, unless you water and tend to that seed, nothing will come of it in the end. James 2:17 puts it really bluntly. Faith without works is dead. So right action isn't about forcing ourselves to do good. It's not about some kind of do-gooder checkbox, that says, I'm a very spiritual person because I did something kind today, and I'm checking the box, right? I mean, you can congratulate yourself in that way if you want, but that's sort of, superfluous. It's really, this idea that we are acting from consciousness, not compulsion. And we're acting from a natural space within us. It's not coming from an outer motivation for acknowledgement. It's coming from an intrinsic place that is just the natural flow of Spirit moving through us and guiding us into actions. It comes from that God-centered heart space. So there was a woman who was complaining to her friends all the time about her neighbor. He consistently left his trash cans in the middle of the sidewalk. And so she would be on the phone talking to her friends about this. And then when she was walking down the street and she came across the cans, she would grumble the whole time, shimmying next to the cans, and then grumble on her way back from her walk. And one day after meditation, she heard a voice within her. And that voice within her said, move the trash cans for him. And she said, why should I do that? They're his trash cans. And Spirit continued within her and said, because you are the Christ in action, and the Christ does not keep score. Yeah. So she moved him, and something softened inside of her. See, the shift didn't happen until she took the action. But when she took the action, probably her heart softened, her body relaxed, and something seemed to shift within her. About a week later, she saw her neighbor, and he thanked her for moving the trash cans. And then something seemingly miraculous to her happened. He started moving them himself. So think about this very simple little action and what happened here, right? Probably weeks, maybe years of a grudge building, right? My neighbor, a separation happening. And then all the stuff that she spewed out to her friends. So friends listening to the complaining over and over again. And what happened by this very simple action is, first of all, a connection was made with her neighbor. There was a movement from judgment to cooperative action, from separation to that connection point. And it frees up all this energy for her. Now she can do something that's actually really productive and co-creative in the world with that extra energy. And her friends are going to be saying, thank you. Because they probably would rather connect with her on a different level, right? Wouldn't you? So it's like all these things happen because one day she moved her neighbor's trash can. It's amazing, isn't it? And I love the fact that the story is about a trash can because that's really what we're talking about, right? Taking out the trash. So ultimately, you know, it's for us to recognize that when we free up energy, one of the things we find is more power. We are empowered to know that our actions make a difference. We are empowered to maybe take another action or a bigger action. And then pretty soon we recognize, wow, when I am in this kind of flow and alignment and I listen to what Spirit says to me, even if I initially resist, there is something that happens here that is really worth doing for me, for the people involved, and even for my friends that I tell about it, or whatever the scenario might be for you. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said, we increase our power by acting in harmony with divine law. We increase our power by acting in harmony with divine law. We increase our effectiveness. We increase our impact, our contribution, our sense of purpose. All of those things get fulfilled by even small actions taken in this way where we feel guided especially. So 12-year-old Grace was staying with us during summer camp. I think many of you know she's Brenly and my goddaughter. And she was sitting across the bar one day while I was in the kitchen doing dishes again. And she noticed that. And she said, you know, you've been doing dishes all week. Brenly should do the dishes. Sorry, Brenly. And you know, but what she didn't realize is like a bigger picture, right? So Brenly went shopping. Brenly made the salad. Brenly was watering the garden all week. You know, so it's like, to her mind, it's like tit for tat. It's like we got to keep an even Steven score here around the contributions made. And if anybody has ever tried that in a relationship, how did that go for you? Right. It never works, right? And it's not really what it's about, because what we do is we bring our contributing self to the scenario, to the situation, to our household, to our community, to our workplace, to our relationships. And we do what either we feel guided to do, or what we can do, or what we want to do, or we just see something that needs to be done and we do it, right? That's taking right action. It's as simple as that. And you think about all the things that can happen when we do that, how it can affect so many things, and everyday mundane tasks even can be so much more enjoyable, for one thing, if we do them with the perspective of we're all in this together. We're team players, we're co-creators, not only with Spirit, but with each other, with our families, with the people in our households, with the people here in this room. We're co-creators. Today, there's a volunteer gathering after this. That's a bunch of co-creators that keep this place moving. Thank you, thank you. If you're one of them, or if you're even thinking about taking action in that way, or you just want to go have a smoothie and be in the great energy, there is a contribution to be made. And it's up to you to decide what it is for you and how it is for you that you will contribute, you and the Spirit that guides you. So if you consider the many needs that get met by any one mundane task, let me just take it back to cleaning the kitchen for a moment. When you clean the kitchen, you might not think that much about what you're doing. It's just something that needs to be done. But think about all the needs that get met, right? There's order, a universal need, right? There's spaciousness to create maybe a delicious, interesting meal, or just a simple meal. And by doing that creation of the meal, nourishing the people around you or yourself. So there's nourishment, and there's health, and there's order, and there's cleanliness, and there's space, and all that because you did the dishes, right? So if we consider for a moment the magnitude of our action, the sacredness of every little mundane thing we do throughout our day, everything then gets infused with a different kind of energy, a different kind of power, as Charles Fillmore is pointing to. And we want more of it. It's like when last week we talked about there's a have to and there's a get to. There's a burden and there's a potential joy. And a lot of it is about the consciousness with which we approach it. So we're not acting here out of compulsion, we're acting out of consciousness. And that's the key. Have you ever known that there was something that you knew the most loving thing to do in a scenario and you didn't do it? You didn't do it right away, or you didn't do it ever? Yeah, so what is that about? What is that gap? Because there is a gap there of understanding of what it is that you wanted to do or thought you should do and what actually got done. And that gap is something that principle number 5 fills. And so in that gap, we might have a thought that says, they don't deserve my kindness. Or they wouldn't do this for me or even anyone else, so why should I do it? Kind of like the lady in the trash cans, right? Or maybe in that gap moment between knowing what the most loving thing to do is and making a decision one way or another, you might think someone else will step in and do it. Someone else will take care of that. So do you remember that study in 1969? You might have read about it in your psychology class or something, that social scientists had staged a situation where a woman yelled out in distress. I see a lot of people doing this. Genevieve, can you check the air conditioning, see if you can lower it? Or Mike? I thought it was just me until I saw the fanning. Okay, anyway, they're working on it. So in this study, this woman is staged, so this woman is calling out in distress. And what they were testing was, do people act more when they're alone or when they're with others? And what they found was 70% of the people did something about it when they were alone. But that number dropped down to 40% when another person was present. And so it's got that idea that we carry that someone else will take care of it. But what if they don't? What if they don't? What if it was yours to do or someone's to do who heard and it goes undone? What if we just walk by? What if we just close our eyes or look the other way? What if we ignore our intuition? What if we pretend that everything is fine when there's another individual in need? What if we pretend everything is fine when the human rights of our country are disappearing before our eyes? The bad news is, superhero God is not going to swoop in and save us. The good news is that divine intervention moves through us. that divine intervention comes into co-creative play through our action. And we can protect whatever is sacred to us. We can turn the tide, turn things around. We can make dreams come true by simply acting. So when we collectively take action, there's no more war. There's no more refugees. There's no more starvation. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine a world where everyone has everything they need. All their basic needs are fulfilled, plus harmony and peace, a sense of well-being. Don't we all hold that vision, that dream? I know we have different ideas of how we'll get there, but every one of us has a guidance system that will tell us what is ours to do about it, what is our action to take. And all of this happens, all these things we imagine come true or can come true when that action is divinely aligned. It's really wonderful when we can pair up with another person where two or more are gathered. There I am in the midst of you. Or a whole community of people, or a whole small group of people, the small group that changed the world, as we know that famous quote. So maybe you don't know, or in any moment you don't know what the right action is for you to take. But you know how we find out, how we do a lot of our work, right? To pause, to listen, to go within. Principle number 4, thank you, Tyler. Yeah, so it's practice, 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 isn't it? That's what helps us get more quickly aligned, more clear on our action. And we may face inner resistance to that. You know, the fear in us may say, it's too risky to take that action. Or what if I mess it up? Or procrastination might talk to us and say, yeah, I'll get to that later. But later, as we know, sometimes never comes if we're on a procrastination loop. And then there can be outer resistance, right? There can be outer resistance of the people who tell you that, no, that's not the right thing that you're doing. Like Jesus, who healed people on the Sabbath. And everybody, was quick to circle around him while he's healing somebody and say, oh, no, can't heal today. You should suffer probably one more day at least, right? Because it's Sabbath and, it's the religious law. And Jesus is like, what? That's how I picture Jesus in that moment. What? There's a spirit of the law and there's a letter of the law, and we need to know the difference and when to use which, right? And there's a spirit of the law being enacted right now, and that is there's somebody in my path that needs something that I can give them, and I feel guided by spirit to give it to them. So I'm not going to be beholden to a man-made law that keeps me from doing the right thing. And it's the same for all of us, isn't it? It's the same edict. It's the same story. No matter what the resistance is that arises from within or from around us, right action is guided by spirit, not comfort zones. Now, I know that's hard. It's even hard when I say it out loud because I like my cozy comfort zone. And I bet you do too, right? We like our comforts. We like our safe spaces. We like our knowing how things work, And there's just a settling into that. I know how to do this job, or I know how to do this relationship, or I know where I live, and it's like there's no more upheaval or change or whatever it is. And just when we get all of our ducks lined up in a row, somebody comes along and messes it up, right? So it is our work to recognize that right action is guided by spirit, and it won't always be comfortable. Right action is it can be very simple, right? In our everyday, taking a moment to make eye contact with the person bagging your groceries and say thank you. Forgive somebody where you've been holding something. Call a friend that's been on your heart or your mind. Open up your wallet or your schedule so that you can give time or money to organizations that inspire you or to people who maybe need a leg up right now. Whatever it is, your action will be your action, guided from within your own heart and spirit. But what I hope we will all do this week is to be much more conscious about taking as many right actions as we can, as we feel so moved to do, and to make those shifts in perspective that help us infuse even the simple, mundane, everyday things we do with that sacred sense of, I get to do this. I get to contribute in this way, and it does make a difference. So, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, once again, I want to circle back to him because I think after you start doing your right actions in this very deliberate way and start paying more attention to the actions you're already taking and infusing them with that sense, you might start to feel like he did when he was 94 years old and exclaimed this: I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. I always feel like it needs to be said with a, ought be done by me, and a little tiptoe kind of raise. So for all of us, as we take our actions throughout this week in this very deliberate way, this could be our exclamation. This could be our affirmation. This can be how we feel as a result of taking right action. So let's use Charles' affirmation for our own today. I invite you to say it with me. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought be done by me.